Yo, what is up guys? It's the Goblin and welcome back to another Call of Duty Modern Warfare video. In tonight's video, I talk about the P90, give a best class up for this weapon, talk about some tips and tricks for this weapon that I think is very, very effective up at close range, especially in a game like this where the game is designed for more long range fights, for more people posted up with ARs. This is a weapon and class up that can sort of help to change that a little bit and allow you to sort of tactically rush, because there's no straight up sprint rushing in this game, at least as of right now, because of the fact that the footsteps are as loud as an elephant right now. But basically, if you can tactically rush, and I think this class up is good around it, this weapon, you can get your gun up quick and absolutely melt people at close range. If you could drop a like on this thing, let's go ahead and go for 902 likes. If we could hit that, that would be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and not already subscribed. We're up over 960K on the road to 1 million. Thank you so much to everyone subscribing, everyone new, hitting that like button, subscribing, all that stuff. I really, really do appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to go ahead and talk about the perks, the equipment I run, and then in the last bit of the video, talk about the attachments, because of course that is super duper important. I go really, really in depth on the attachments with this weapon, into all of my attachments around speeding this thing up, getting my gun up quick, aiming down sights a little bit quicker, and being able to win fights around close range. Because the way that I see it, if you're using the P90, you should pretty much be only using this at close range fights, right? If you're trying to take on mid to long range fights, there's a lot of assault rifles in this game that absolutely melt and have fast fire rates that would probably be more effective. The way that this thing is used is that you have a lot more movement speed because of how punishing some of those attachments are on ARs. The benefit to SMGs is you don't have to punish yourself on the movement speed on as many of the slowdowns nearly as much for P90s. You need to take advantage of that and make this class up for, I guess you could say, like I said, tactically rushing. Now, perk 1, what do I rock with perk 1? Now, in perk 1, I was testing out a little bit of things. I was testing out quick fix, which I think is awesome because you're able to regen your health 3 seconds faster after getting a kill. But personally, I changed my mind and decided to go with, instead of quick fix, I go with the stim shot as my tactical to be able to heal up a little bit quicker. And then on my perk 1, I go with the double time. Double the duration of tactical sprint, increase crouch movement by 30%. Now, this is pretty effective because, like I said, you can't really be running around in this game. So doubling the duration of tactical sprint is helpful because of the running simulator that when you spawn way back and you have to run up into their spawn, it's very helpful for eliminating some of the boring parts of the game like that. And then the increased crouch movement is the important part, because I talked about how you can't sprint around enemies in this game. You're increasing your crouch movement by 30%, so you're able to sort of slide around a little bit and be able to move in buildings, crouch walking, which isn't the way that I like to play Call of Duty, but that's how this game is designed. So first perk, I definitely say either go with quick fix or double time. The thing about running with the stim shot is it's super duper nice. However, once you use them all, unless you're restocking with your ammo supply, or you have the restock perk, which I don't run on this class setup, you can run out. So I can see a benefit to both here in this first perk slot. Double time if you're trying to get up, it's a bigger map where you have to eliminate some of that sprint time and you're sort of crouch walking through buildings. And quick fix if you don't really need that stuff, if you don't really need to have more of a tactical sprint and you're not really much of a crouch walker, although I think you kind of have to be and kind of adapt in this game. So first perk, you can definitely go with double time or quick fix. Perk 2, high alert. I think 100% high alert is what you want to go with on this class up. Your vision pulses when enemies outside of your view see you. Now, in this game, a lot of the time, there's that meme on Twitter where the guy crosses the street and just gets melted in Modern Warfare, and that's sort of how it is. It feels like people are posted up in buildings just waiting for the players that are gonna, the noobs that are gonna run out in the middle of the street, which has now become the noobs are camping and the players that actually want to play are running out into the middle of the street. So having that, your screen flashes. It's very, very obvious whenever you're targeted by someone or when someone sees you, high alert, and that can be helpful for peeking things and being able to be safe when moving through those open areas, because you want to stay out of those open areas, but you have to move through them to get to spots where you want to fight people. This can really help you, whenever that thing flashes, someone's looking at you, so slide right away. Try to do anything to help them miss their shots in a fast time to kill game, or just duck back in. It really is important to get that warning because, like I said, first shot will win gunfights the majority of the time in this game, so having that alert can be very, very helpful. As far as perk 3 goes, perk 3 on this thing, I really like Tracker. I really, really do. I think Tracker, it's growing on me so much, and especially on an SMG sort of mini rush setup like this, Enemies leave behind a footprint trail, see markers at enemy death locations, and hide the death markers of enemies you kill. This is unlocked at level 51, so it's a very, very late unlock. When you're leveling up through the levels, you could probably just go with Battle Hardened, or Tune Up and then Battle Hardened, but then eventually get yourself to Tracker, because the way it works in this game, I have never really been the biggest fan of Tracker in any other previous COD, but in this game, it's really, really good. Like, the footsteps are really, really obvious, and that death marker thing makes a world of difference. Seeing those big red death markers lets you know, okay, this is what's happening, and where people are dying to where they're going to spawn out at. If you learn the game, hiding the death markers of enemies you kill can also be helpful to just confuse your enemies a little bit. But the main part of that is being able to track their footsteps, and it's helpful in buildings, maybe even in like a ground war, where of course footsteps are super duper loud in this game, so you'd think Tracker won't be that useful, but when the air support and everything else is super duper loud as well, sometimes you can't hear fully when things are just going crazy, so having the Tracker just in case can help you out in that scenario. Then as far as the equipment, I just rock with the Claymore. I mean, honestly, you could go with whatever, Semtex, Frag Grenade. Claymores are just broken right now. It's basically a free kill. I just find a nice spot, place it down, and then just keep it moving, and then eventually someone's going to run into that Claymore if it stays there. And then, like I said, Stim Shot as far as the healing. Anyway, that's what we rock as far as the perks. Pretty different perk setup from my Assault Rifle class ups. That's because this is designed for completely different engagements, completely different gunfights you're going to be taking on. Anyway, drop a like. Let's go ahead and get right into the attachments on this thing. Yo, what is up, guys? Let's go ahead and get right into the attachments for this P90. Now, all these attachments are basically around speeding this weapon up, making it more effective at close range, because if we're looking for a weapon that would do well at medium or long range, of course, in this current meta, you'd probably just go with one of those fast-firing assault rifles or a different SMG that has a little more range to it. This P90 really does melt them up close, and I think this is an awesome weapon, so that's how we designed the class setup for, I guess you could say, rushing, even though rushing honestly doesn't really exist in this game, for basically being a bit quicker and getting to your enemies and killing them close range up in their spawn or up in their spawn buildings or something like that. So first off with the laser. Now for the laser, you want to go with the middle laser, the 5MW laser. This one is so amazing because look what it gets you. It gives you sprint to fire speed, and it also gives you hip fire accuracy. You do get a laser that is visible to the enemies, so it basically exposes your position when active, only for the aggressive, as they say. Can be kind of annoying, but I think it's too good to not put that on. Giving yourself the hip fire accuracy, which is fairly decent on SMGs in this game, I find, and sprint to fire speed, getting your gun up quick out of a sprint is so important, because honestly, sprinting at all in this game really exposes yourself to being killed because of the time to get your gun up, and not only that, the time to kill. The enemy, if someone's waiting for you leaning around a corner on a head glitch, you need to get that gun up pretty much instantly, because usually, because of the time to kill, the first shot will kill. The first person to hit a shot will win the gunfight, is what I'm saying. So the 5MW laser definitely is the way to go. When you're leveling up from the early levels, you can definitely go with the 1MW laser. Personally, I don't really go with the tac laser. It gives you aiming stability, it gives you aiming walking steadiness, and aim down sight speed. Really the only one that's usable aim walking steadiness is decent on this weapon. Aiming stability, you don't really need. It's an SMG. Aim down sight speed is nice, but I just find the sprint to fire speed is so important. Getting that gun up quick is what makes, being able to stack these sprint to fire speeds, speeding your weapon up, basically hip fire accuracy, different stuff like that, really is what makes SMGs be able to compete in this game. So that's what I go with as far as the laser. Next, I go with an optic sight on this weapon. Now, you do lose a little bit of ADS speed when you go with an optic sight. Personally, I like it because the iron sights on this weapon, or the default sights, they're all right, but at anything farther than a little bit of range, I find that this GI mini reflex, which reminds me a lot of like the red dot from MW2, is very effective. And it isn't, you lose a tiny bit of ADS speed, but because of all the other attachments we have speeding this thing up, it isn't that noticeable. I find that this just makes this weapon a lot more clean. Now, I know there's some people that might say, oh, well, I love the default sights. Personally, I've been a fan of the P90. In Modern Warfare 3, the P90 was like one of my favorite guns in that game. It was so fun to use, so rewarding to get kills with, and I like the iron sights in that game on it. But this game, I'd think that the GI, especially because there's so many different options here that you can go with. I mean, you could rock with a Viper, but personally, I like the GI mini reflex. I think that's really good for SMGs, and on ARs, I'm kind of stuck between the Viper and GI, still mixing up between the two. Next is the stock. Now, the stock is so easy to pick on this weapon. You go for the fly strap. You get more sprint to fire speed, and you also get aim walking movement speed. So you get stock and gung-ho, basically, if we want to put this into Black Ops terms. That is absolutely crazy, bro. Both of those things are amazing. Now, the strafing ability is awesome. Already, SMGs have, of course, a better strafe than like your LMGs, your ARs, your marksman rifles, and stuff like that. that. But having extra on it is super duper nice to help you just double up on that. Sort of like, you know, if you're thinking of a Black Ops 4 player, the SOG double stock before that got nerfed, people would just move side to side. You could barely hit them. It's sort of like a minier version of that. I don't think, you know, the strafing speeds aren't as nearly as insane in this game. And then, of course, more sprint to fire speed, which is so helpful, getting that gun up quick. Your other options for this, I mean, you have ADS speed, which I'd probably use this as you're ranking up through the ranks until you get to the fly strap. Personally, I would probably never really use this one, the heavy stock. I mean, you give up your strafing speed for aiming stability. I'm not really sure what this is used for. I don't really know. I mean, if I'm looking for aiming stability, I'm not using a P90 SMG. I'm picking more of like an AR, a marksman rifle. You give up aiming stability with the fly strap, but I don't find that it makes too big of a difference, or it really isn't that big of a deal. Next, for the perk, I go with sleight of hand. Now, this weapon does have a pretty big magazine, but it does have a fast fire rate as well. And if you're playing in ground war or 10v10, I've usually been playing a lot of 10v10 with this weapon. If I pull it out on like a Grasna raid and rush in, I think that, you know, having a nice magazine size is really clutch. But sleight of hand, because everything else is designed around speeding this weapon up, I think just, you know, keeping it consistent and going with sleight of hand here, just because there's not really any other options that will help out your weapon without punishing the speed. If you want to mix it up for maybe something else here, I guess you could go with like fully loaded for max starting ammo, and then change, instead of running ammunitions box, to run dead silence. I think that might actually be a good idea. It just depends on personal preference, whether you want to sort of be crouch walking when you get up close to them, or whether you want to be just cycling through dead silence as much as you can. Then you might want to go with the max starting ammo, because honestly, you start off with a pretty low amount of ammo in this game, and it seems like you're always burning through it quick. Now, either you can pick up your teammates' ammunitions box or use it yourself, but I think sleight of hand is still, you know, super helpful. And then next we go with the stippled grip tape, or the stippled grip tape, which is on the rear grip. Gives you ADS speed and sprint to fire speed, again, giving up aiming stability. So now you're getting some ADS speed. We're still getting that sprint to fire speed, and we're basically stacking this weapon and speeding this thing up to get your gunny up quick. That should be the definition of this class setup, and pick people off at close range. Now, rushing is so like frowned upon, and not, this game is not designed for it, but in a class setup like this, you can kind of make it work as long as you're smart about the footsteps when you get up close, because that is what really hurts rushing. I think the stippled grip tape, which is nice because it's unlocked early, is just ridiculously good. Quick draw and gung ho is ridiculously awesome. These other options I really wouldn't stick with. You know, if I'm using a weapon, well, like again, I'm using this weapon up close and personal, so I'm going to keep the class setup like it. Now, you might wonder, why don't I use any of the muzzle, the barrel, or the underbarrel? Personally, some of these things are okay. For example, you can get recoil control, but you have to then give up ADS speed, so you're giving up speed. Here, you can get recoil control and aiming stability. It sounds great. Oh my gosh, you have to give up quick draw and stock? No chance I'm doing that. And same things with the barrel. I mean, look at this. You get damage range, bullet velocity, recoil control. I mean, this would probably be good if you're going onto a bigger map with this weapon. But personally, like I said, if you're on a bigger map, you don't really want to use this weapon because, you know, it's an SMG. It's made for up close and personal. So I guess you could swap this out for sleight of hand and maybe try to have a weapon with a bit more range. But look, you're giving up movement speed. You're giving up ADS speed. So it's kind of like, why are you running an SMG if you're not trying to have ADS speed and movement speed? That's sort of my opinion on it. As far as the muzzles go, I don't really mess with any of the muzzles on this. Once again, you know, sound suppression and damage range is nice, but you're giving up ADS speed. You are giving up aim walking steadiness as well, which does have somewhat of an effect. Aiming stability doesn't really mess with you that much. Aim walking steadiness can, because of course when you're aiming down sights and strafing, that can hit you a little bit. I think the monolithic suppressor could be good on this weapon, so you could swap out the monolithic suppressor for sleight of hand if you want a silent setup, even though the way silencers work in this game is they don't keep you off of the compass or the mini-map. It's more of just a sound suppression so the enemies can't hear you. And then, of course, you get damage range, or you could stack something like this, but you're really costing yourself the speed. I think sticking with a fast setup, using this thing for what it's made for, up close and personal, is the way to go. Anyway, drop a like, and yeah, test out this P90 class setup.